So welcome to our second podcast. I want to talk today. Let me set the context for the topic I want to talk about today, and then sort of what we might cover. So whether you're watching this in Australia or around the world, right now there's a lot of economic and inflationary pressures that are impacting people's livelihoods and households. Daily goods and utilities are going up a lot, and inflation's high generally through the world, and that's creating pressure on people. And I think it's that backdrop of how people are feeling financially that I want to have a conversation about what happens with me, and then check in with Kevin around what happens with him about when you get in this mindset of scarcity. And in particular, I'd like to explore this idea of the fear of being poor, and how that can sort of be catching over time, and then how do you work, what is the way out of that so that you can turn things around for you financially and be more in a state of abundance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Well, let's kick it off and see where it goes.
Okay. So what I think I'll cover is sort of how I experience this. Then we can talk about sort of what you connect with in terms of the idea, and then we'll talk about the way out, or the way of turning it around.
What's worked for us, what is hopefully working for us, or not working for us, all of those things.
As the case may be. And I think to set context for this personally is I'm right in the middle of this right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm out the other side and feeling amazing. I'm right in the middle of struggling with this right now and working through it. So what I think happens, and there's been a pattern in my life, is that I will get in periods where the external world around money, so call it clients, call it my investments, call it the ways that I make money and who pays me money, are not behaving like they should, right? They're not either, I'm not getting the work in, the investments are going down. And what I find happens is that once within yourself you recognize that a few of these things are not going the way you want them to, what tends to happen is that they snowball, and that more of these things tend to go the wrong way, or the way that you are trying to control them to be. Do you connect with that?
Yeah, absolutely. They just seem to stack on top of each other. It's like, you get to the stage, I'm sure this happens to a lot of people. You just you ask the why question, and that takes you down another rabbit hole.
The why question is the victim mentality.
Exactly. Yeah. Why me? Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things you got to break out of for sure. But yeah, it's just when they just keep coming.
What tends to stack for you? What's the classic stack of those things that might stack on top of one another?
Well, it's definitely financial, and the impact of what's happening with inflation, particularly. I was saying before, I went and did a bit of shopping the other day, just a really small shop, and just came home so depressed because it's just ridiculous, the cost of everything now. Yeah. And I have the means to pay for it, which I'm grateful for. But I know if I'm feeling like this, how many people are really, really in this challenge that we're talking about. But it's still hard. It's still hard for me. It's like, where does that replacement dollar come from?
Yeah.
To do that? Whereas before it was okay. You go through these cycles as consultants. We have this all the time, and we have great times, and then you have it quietens down. But like you at the moment, it's like, why are the clients not helping me?
Yeah, why they're not behaving like they should?
What's going on in the world?
And so I think if we go back a level, scarcity and abundance is a belief, and I think it is conditioned by how you were brought up. So if I go deeper into that for myself, my father grew up dirt poor to the point where they didn't have money for shoes, so he used to walk to school barefoot. Right. And I always knew that about him. And he also grew up in a really difficult family environment. His father was an alcoholic and violent, and all these range of things. And I think the way he processed that in his life was that safety for him is about a buffer.
Yeah.
Safety for him is about keeping money in and not spending it.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think generationally they were parented by depression, people who went through the depression.
Yeah.
So they had this sort of mindset and belief around don't spend because you never know what shit thing's going to happen tomorrow or next week. And I think everyone's got their background around money, right, and around abundance. Would you
yeah,
agree?
absolutely. So my parents were similar, but my father got Parkinson's at the age of 39. So his working career was cut really short, and he only lived for another 10 years. But in that time, you know, I was the financial organizer for our family, not necessarily the provider, because I was just starting out work-wise. But I had to manage the money that was there to get it to go the furthest. So I can remember that right from the beginning, sitting around our kitchen table. You know, we have a scarce amount of dollars, or in South Africa, rands, and he had to do these things. Yeah, and then we had to find, is there another way that we can? So right from my, well, probably my uni days, which I did part-time because I couldn't afford to go full-time. In fact, I did it by correspondence after a while. I had to manage the money, the pool of money that allowed us to have some some sort of, not decent living, but some sort of things that we would want to do. And I still, one of the stories I do remember, I played a lot of sport at quite a high level as a junior. And I was a catcher for baseball. And a catcher's mitt was really quite expensive in those days.
Because they're thick, right?
Yeah,
they're
much more padding, exactly. Yeah. And I remember that my parents got me one, and I was like, how did you get that? You know, wow, you know, I'm so grateful.
That's special.
Yeah, it was. And it's still to this day. You know, I would have been 13 or 12 or something, but that sticks out for me.
Yeah. Sometimes those things are expressions of love.
Well, they are, and absolutely. Right? And you know, we would go on sports tours and things like that, and we'll cost, we know what sports or any sort of activities cost at school levels now.
So I think for everyone listening, draw out from our conversation whatever it was, the belief around money that you grew up with, and it's not as if what we're saying is that you need to discard it. We're not. It's just part of the picture that I think all of us deal with when we come through these situations of scarcity.
Yeah, it's easy to fall back on.
It's easy to fall back on it's easy to fall back on it when it was part of your conditioning growing up.
Yeah.
The natural sense of the world never provides enough.
Yeah.
Because it never did then, and it hasn't for my parents, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And I think and I think be aware of that, because my sense is that the reason, and this is the second thing, is the reason it tends to snowball is because we get in the mindset of scarcity. So our behavior, our belief system, and the energy we're putting out is around scarcity, and that then attracts more scarce moments to us.
Yeah.
That's the reason why clients don't call, because there's no abundance sense of
right.
where you're going. Yeah. And it's kind of why around you that everything tends to slow down.
You're almost closing off the channels.
You are.
Yeah.
And from an energy perspective.
Yeah. And it's happened. So, you know, I've been consulting for over 20 years, and we were consulting during the GFC, and we had exactly that. And you had to get to that stage. You have to believe in what you're doing firstly. So that's the belief rather than the mindset, and let it go, and just hope like hell that it actually does work.
So let's move from there, which is then the first thing is obviously the awareness. So what tends to happen is that the external, so you normally have an internal goal, and it could be a financial goal. You know, it might be to bring in a certain amount. It might be to create enough wealth from your investments, whatever your financial goal is. And then what tends to happen is the external world doesn't meet your goal, like we just talked about. And then that starts to erode your belief, your optimistic belief, into a scarce belief. It's exacerbated by your background, whether it be your father or your family situation. And then those of us who have got that background, it tends to happen quicker too, because we can just fall into that.
Do you think that just quicker or more too? I wonder if it's even...
Maybe it's deeper.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it's quicker and deeper.
Yeah.
But this would be something you'd have to comment on, I think, the audience, and say, you know, perhaps it does, perhaps it doesn't. I think it's an individual thing. And, you know, this can, like I was saying before, this can also happen from a macro perspective. So, you know, with the macroeconomics and when they talk about economic indicators, they talk about sentiment and economic sentiment and the propensity for people to buy. And I would say from a psychological perspective, this is exactly what sentiment is. It's the propensity for people to feel like it is an abundant world around them. So they're likely to be abundant in the world. It doesn't mean that they are going to spend on everything. It means that they're not in a scarce mindset. And, you know, I don't know it for sure, but economists would never call it this, but I feel it can be catching to the people around you. And in families. And it causes frictions, like it does in my relationships. It causes frictions.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, I know, you know, with my wife, she's much more an abundant person. And when I get scarce, it increases the conflict. Because, you know, it's just, she can't stand it. She can't stand that sort of way of thinking. So the question is then, how do you manage through it? And we've obviously had to manage through it with our businesses, and we've had to manage through it personally. And my experience with it, and my experience this week as I managed through this week, is that, like all of the things that the universe presents to you, is an opportunity to go within and resolve something about yourself. And most specifically, the abundance versus scarcity mindset is asking you to go within and accept all of yourself, and to love parts of yourself that you haven't loved before. So in being in a scarce mindset, it actually, you can imagine, it reduces you into this smaller version of who you are. It says, actually, you know, Kevin, you're not valuable. The world isn't valuing you. And so you clump into this small little version. And then what tends to happen on the outside is we were talking about, you don't go out in the world. You don't go and see clients. You don't go and see people, because you're like, I'm not worthy of that.
But it goes a little deeper than that. Even it's even in your mind, you're coming from that. Even if you do have conversations, you're expecting a no, or you're not going to pick up the phone because you don't want to get a no. You know, whereas you've got no idea what's going to happen. You've got no idea what's happening on the other side of the phone call or desk or whatever communication you're in with your clients or customers or friends, whatever it is, banks. I've had some interesting conversations with banks, and they one of the things that gets me is that all this promotion around helping small businesses, until they're not getting there, until
they've got to give their credit away to someone with not a great credit rating. And
the credit rating that's come about from a tragedy, not mismanagement. Exactly.
So I think the other element to this is that a scarce mindset then energetically creates scarcity in the world for you. And so the answer, like I'm saying, is firstly to be aware of this, and to go within you and to try and say, what parts of myself am I not accepting, or am I not loving, and get yourself within you to a place of acceptance and wholeness. And it's I would say, like, I'm not the oracle of all things, but I would say it's always asking you to do that work. And until you do that work, it will keep asking you. So I would notice, you know, you can go out into the external world and try and control things and make them better by doing and doing and doing, going and seeing clients and just obsessively doing that. And eventually you'll turn things around, but the pattern will come back. It'll come back a year from now. It'll come back 2 years from now, because it's trying to teach you to go within.
That's right. It always comes back with the lesson until you've actually learnt. And it causes the friction, because you are extending yourself in a behavior that isn't congruent with what you feel inside.
Yeah.
So you've got that stress level. You know, we've talked about this from a being profile and being in flow, which takes away a lot of the stress if you can actually behave the way that you are
congruent and
internally.
authentic.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I think how you know, everyone always asks how do you do this work? I think there's a few things not to do and a few ways I can point you. The first thing not to do is to respond by in control. And responding in control is like going out into the external world and trying to make it the way that you want it to be. Because what tends to happen is you're going to exhaust the crap out of yourself, which will create more of a scarcity mindset. And in that way of being, you can keep doing a whole lot of things. And yeah, it's just, it's not a great way to energetically work with it. And then what I would point you to is the fact that I can't tell you exactly what it is that you need to resolve and accept and love within yourself, but that will be unique to you. But that's the place to feel into and to look at.
Yeah, and added to that, one of the things that's works sometimes for me is getting to love myself. So love, forgiveness, all those sorts of words, compassion for yourself in whatever you're working through, it creates that abundance outside, that attracts that abundance. And I went through that earlier this year, and I was amazed at what happened then. I've regressed since, but you know, that's how it goes. It's not a linear cycle.
That's why I thought it'd be a great conversation for us to have today, because I think it's probably a meta thing that both you and I have been working on at a big picture in different ways.
Absolutely.
And I think it's pointing us towards that inner work and that reality that you need to work on.
One of the things that just on that point then is taking responsibility for where you're at. So that comes back to loving yourself and being aware, being very aware of yourself, not and also that I've lost my thought for a second.
Well, I think being aware is really important because it's actually awareness that will bring you to the place of resolution. So it's the consciousness that there is a dynamic interplay between the external world and what it's teaching you and where you need to look internally. And if you're in the soup, as I call it, which is the consciousness of the day-to-day grind and by the way, I'm not judging anyone who's in that, but if you are in that consciousness of scarcity and you're just trying to make things work, it's the awareness of what this is actually asking you to learn and accept within yourself, and taking that time to go within and learn that will help you. And part of that is the responsibility and the commitment to resolving it that way, rather than resolving it in the external world.
Yeah. And just coming back to the thought that left my mind for a second, one of the things that really works for me is talking about it, and talking about it to people that are not just going to say yes, 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 that will challenge your thoughts as well. So I've had a lot of that particularly in the last 18, 19 months. And I've been really grateful for those conversations and learn lots about myself. And learning is the thing. Whatever the situation, let's look for the learning that comes out, the lessons for us, rather than blaming something. Oh, why did that happen to me? All that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I'm the same. And I will seek people out that are on a similar level to me that will not just go, oh, poor you, but will say, what's this here to teach you?
Yeah.
What are you not seeing within yourself that you need to accept? Because that harder work will be the thing that will eventually turn this dynamic around to acceptance and balance, and for you being back in your center. And then once you're back in your center, that's the place to start to turn around the external abundance that you see and what you're trying to create in the world that people will value and buy and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Just on that point about conversations, one thing that's helped me, and I said having these conversations. I'd love to have conversations with anyone that wants to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Enjoy it.
And I think to wrap this up, so 2 or 3 things we're curious about. The first one is do you find the same thing around scarcity, which is that it tends to build on itself, and you go through patterns in your life where it does. The second is, you know, how do you feel about the fact that when you get this sort of energy within you, that it tends to manifest on the outside and is catching and creates frictions and all these things around you. And then the third is, you know, if you think about it, what is the work that it's pointing to? What is the work that it's pointing for you to do within yourself to return to that place of wholeness, to return to that place of center, and to accept all of yourself?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Until next time.
See you soon. Bye.